Welcome back to another glorious edition of Ask That. Just kicking these things off one after another. With me today, Mr. Brandon Satrom.
Sir,
How the hell are you?
I'm
This
doing
is
very well, Clark.
time 2. You're now a repeat customer.
Yeah, that's right. It has been a while.
I'm not sure what we're buying or selling, but you're a repeat.
I appreciate it. I'll come on anytime.
So, what are we going to talk about? Show about nothing?
Show about nothing. We can
Show
do that.
about nothing.
Content free.
Let's start with, do a quick introduction on
Okay.
who you are. Who is Brandon?
So, oh gosh, we're getting really
No, not
deep.
the meta.
All
Let's
right,
just
okay,
get, we don't have enough time.
So
I only have so much drive space for
Right.
recording.
it would take a long time. I'm Brandon Satrom. I wear many hats, I suppose. My day job, I am a particles developer evangelist. So as I've recently liked to say, I build cool stuff so that developers can build cooler stuff and help make our products better so we can all build the coolest stuff.
But that's a lot of cool.
That's a lot of cool. I like it. It works. And then I also do, my wife and I and our family do a maker education and publishing business on the side, Carrot Pants Studios. So we've done children's books for getting kids into electronics.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one of your recent little hacks has been this badge life thing.
Yes, badge life. Yes.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that, almost like the metaphysical question, could take a long time.
Could
But
be.
actually, it's related to, turns out, the DEF CON conference, which starts in a couple of days in Vegas every year. Big InfoSec security conference, and over the course of the last 12 years or so, there's been this increasing group of people who make these electronic conference badges. They're basically just printed circuit boards you put on a lanyard and put around your neck. And they started pretty basic, kind of like the Learn to Solder kits, a couple of through-hole LEDs, blinky lights, what have you. And they've gotten more and more complicated every year. And
these aren't like the conference badge.
No.
They're a badge.
They're a
badge.
Yeah.
But not the badge.
But they're not the badge.
I think it's a good distinction because in your mind you're thinking about schedule and logo, but that's not what it is.
No. This is like blinky lights and LED screens and LCD screens and all kinds of craziness and characters and really for some of the crazy stuff like at DEF CON, it gets even nuttier than that. I mean, there's a security conference in Wisconsin where they did the conference badge for this conference. These folks called the Toy Makers. And their badge was basically they built a phone system for an old school dial-up phone system for the attendees. And every badge was a phone that had a modem in it. And you could jack it into your computer and you could basically dial other phones around the conference and try to hack into this junction box that they had set up for the whole place.
Intense.
Or PBX box. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of crazy.
That's out there.
So they call it badge life because I think what happens is people get hooked on this and they spend an inordinate amount of time building these blinky PCB-based electronic badges. But it's a lot of fun.
And you just built one.
I did.
Yeah.
The second iteration of one.
Kind of built one for that conference, but nowhere near to the level of what you built. So let's talk about it. We should have grabbed one. You took one off.
I don't. Why did I do that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it sitting over there on the?
It's not. I left it in our booth.
It's even
so
further.
It'd take too long. Yeah.
So what did you build? Where did this start?
So it started actually when I was planning. Particle every year has a big presence at the Bay Area Maker Fair in San Mateo, California. And I wanted to do a badge for our booth, for staff to have at the booth. And that was, it was a very simple, just sort of 4-inch circle sort of design. And we put a particle electron in there because the Wi-Fi at Maker Fair is awful. And, that led to us just thinking about, well, what if we built a badge for that conference? We knew we were going to be here. We knew we were going to be a sponsor. What could we do that was actually a little bit more? We could give some of the attendees, not all of them. These things, they cost a little bit more than a plastic laminated badge, But we wanted.
Which aren't cheap either.
They're not. I'm sure they're not. Yeah, I'm sure they're not. Yeah. But we wanted to do something that we could give to people to create an interactive element to the conference. We knew we were going to do a workshop to sort of frame it as the workshop device as well. And so that was sort of the genesis of it. I spent the last couple of months designing and laying out the custom PCB and all of the elements around it. The brains of it is the particle photon, which is our Wi-Fi device. And then it's got, 4 tactile LED buttons. It's got a screen on it. It's got a temperature and humidity sensor on it. It's got a little piezo buzzer on there as well. And what we discovered in the process, for our workshop at least, and for the folks that have gotten one over the last couple of days, is that it actually ends up being this sort of learning platform for being exposed to embedded systems.
Yeah, totally.
Because you almost have this sort of, it's not this enclosed thing with all the stuff you need to start exploring, writing to input, reading from inputs and writing to screens and reading temperature values and things, all that kind of stuff. So
now you've had a bit of fun along the way with this thing. And,
I have.
I think, a quasi-wearable.
Yeah, true.
And LiPo batteries have left some pants soiled.
Yeah. We did discover our first iteration of the badge actually used lithium polymer batteries, which come in for those maybe familiar, they're basically come in the silver bag with the piece of gold tape around it, right? They're meant to be put in enclosures and protected. They are actually the same batteries that are in phones, but the ones in phones, if it's not a Samsung, are very, very well encased.
But you're talking about the little ones that you use in the drone, like
drone batteries.
Grade,
exactly. Yeah.
They're a little square. Maybe you find them in a phone. Or in a house phone.
They're perfectly safe batteries, but they're also lithium in general is a highly combustible substance if exposed to oxygen. So one of our engineering guys, he actually is our director of engineering.
There's still one
that had So actually had the badge at Maker Faire, and he was on a break. He took it, he wrapped the lanyard around it, shoved it in his pocket. And in our initial badge, what we did basically was the electron was on the front. The LiPo was basically Velcroed to the back. And then we put the antenna for the electron on the top of the LiPo as well. And because we had spent a lot of time hand assembling these badges the whole week leading up to Maker Faire, we actually forgot, and by we I mean me, I forgot to flush cut all of the through-hole pins on the back of the badge.
Sure.
And so this individual, who shall remain nameless,
we'll call him Hot Pants.
Well, Hot Pants. Yeah, he took the badge off, wrapped it up, shoved it in his pocket, which caused the LiPo battery to kind of bend over.
Yep.
And then the pins on the back punctured, and then basically smoke caught on fire, it burned your shirt. So that was that
redefines badge life.
That redefined badge life for sure. Yeah. We all learned some lessons about flush cutting pins and so
and really, I mean, really just how fragile these things are that we almost take for granted.
Yeah,
they're becoming a commodity, and they're shipping in more and more things.
But it makes you realize in the world of consumer electronics that there's a lot of time and energy paid to safety and making sure these devices are safe, right? For the conference batch, for that conference, we actually switched to using lithium ion batteries, they look like alkalines, but they're fatter, thicker 18650 batteries. And those give us the same sort of like power in a small package, but they're more durable. They're safe, encased in a metal or aluminum shell and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think you also said that they've got a protection circuit on it, right?
And they do have a protection circuit on them, so that if they get discharged, over-discharged, or even overcharged, they'll shut down so that you can't use them anymore.
Which, I mean, you wouldn't think about a battery having any smarts to it either.
Absolutely. A lot of these batteries now, they're
out of necessity needs to because of Hot Pants.
There's a little IC in there. Yeah, absolutely.
And that all came about because somebody a long, long time ago had a battery that burned his hiney and said, "Oh, these battery things, we can't just throw them in the old drawer."
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
respect it.
When I first heard that, I was thinking of the the batteries that we have for like our RC cars, and they're the 7.5, 8-volt, lithium ion batteries. They're, 7,200 milliamp or whatever. They're big and And what do we do with them? Well, you have all these batteries. You charge them up. You throw them in the case. You go out there. Yeah. And I'm not talking like the fire case. I'm just the vessel that we've decided to store all of the RC stuff in, right?
Which is probably just a plastic box, right?
Which includes screwdrivers, and, right? Like all the essential equipment to fix that RC car.
That's true.
And what do? You throw it in the back of the truck
with
the trucks, right? So I've redefined getting What are those lipo bags?
It's taught me some things. I went and bought a lipo bag on Amazon like the next day, and because I've got a lot of different size of lipos. You get them over the years. I've collected small ones, big ones, whatever, and they were just sitting in a drawer in my office, in my garage, my workshop, which in the summer in Texas can get to like 105 degrees in there.
Yeah.
And there's never been an issue, but I sort of had that moment of like, just in case, I probably should have these things in a bag.
Might want to be
not be a bad idea. Yeah.
How are kind of taking the badge to the next step? I mean, now that you're at Particle and have seen this hardware side of things kind of more intimately, what have been some of your I don't want to say aha moments, but like realizations on the other side? I mean, I would say I'm still playing on the rookie side, from the outside, but you've now gone to the manufacturer.
Yeah.
What have you learned in the last couple of months of that transition?
Yeah. It's a fantastic question. I feel like I learn something new every week being on this side of things, especially being part of a hardware startup. I think Particle is fortunate to have had a community of developers and investors as well that really believe in the mission and believe and understand that the economics of being a startup doing hardware are different than the economics of being a software startup.
Yeah.
Where you get the benefit of zero distribution costs.
Yeah. The recompile on hardware is hard.
Very, very hard. Yeah. And so probably one of the first realizations that I made coming on this side is that when you meet a team of people that have accomplished a ton, and then you sort of realize the small number of people that they accomplished that with, you're like, you get to this moment of like, you have that aha moment of a team with a real strong purpose can accomplish amazing things. I mean, up until the last 18 months, Particle had less than 40 employees. And if you look at the Spark Core and then the Photon and the Electron and the cloud platform and then getting into enterprise and doing the mass production modules, everything they've done in most of their history has been a sub 50 person company.
Yeah.
And it is really impressive to see the talent that they have and the quality of people and just their single-mindedness towards that vision, and that really drives that drives them to that goal regardless of the people that they have, which is cool. I mean, that's been a huge thing. But even with that, personally on this side, because it's been a dream of mine to get professionally into the maker IoT space for a couple of years now, to actually get paid to do the things I've been doing for a while, I realized that that no matter what I think I've learned so far, there's way more that I haven't. But B, that some of those extremely talented people, some that are here with us this week, have been just amazing in helping me on that path. These are people who, they're double E's, their undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering. They're hardware engineers. They're firmware engineers. They know an amazing amount about the internals of not only these systems, but name your embedded device or embedded system, and they've worked with it. They know it. And they have never had an issue with myself or anybody else, like wanting to try something, helping out. Like, if you look at it, it's a little bit crazy to think that I came in as this new guy, web developer by trade, and I said, I'm going to create a custom PCB we're going to put Particle's name on it, and we're going to give it out to people, and that they were okay with me not being a professional hardware engineer doing that.
Putting Pocket Fire together.
And exactly, right. That we have that culture.
Now they are. Now they are.
Now there's a lot more questions.
You're going to let Brandon not do that.
Yes, exactly, right. Yeah. But there's a lot of trust in that the people that Particle decides to hire, that there's trust that these people should be trusted to try things, to fail, to iterate, to make mistakes, and that I have that assistance along the way. I mean, what we ended up having in the badge, which we lovingly refer to as the party badge, what we have in the badge is not just my work, but actually the work of these people who have educated me, who have helped me, who have checked my designs and pointed out the very silly mistakes that I made that have gotten us to this point. And it's been real awesome to go from solo tinkerer, maker, to getting to do that in an environment where they're very seasoned people who are mentoring me in a lot of ways and helping me learn. It's been neat.
How about you bringing back to them?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I have gone into this, and I think this is what Particle wants from me, not only as their evangelist, but as who I am in my background, is making sure that Particle never forgets that a large majority of their customers are people who are like me, who aren't trained to do this.
Sure.
So that we never forget the maker mindset, but also the beginner mindset. And I think that's evangelism or advocacy in general, is somebody who is skilled in a product or platform, but never forgets what it's like to not be skilled in that.
Yeah.
And they can always provide that perspective. And I think that's what they continue to expect from me, that I can bring back to Particle this input and feedback on, this is where our onboarding experience is a challenge, or this is where we're losing new developers because they're getting hung up and trying to get a device on Wi-Fi, or because we're not.
No, not that one.
We're not exactly.
Don't have a Wi-Fi chip that makes it really hard.
Right. Or that
missing the point.
Or not communicating successfully what mesh networking is and why you need it, and so people don't really know what to do with it, and things like that. And that's, everybody has that role within the company, but because of what I do in speaking to a lot of developers and a lot of people that ask that question, what is Particle? That there's an opportunity to help people, to help the company grow and continue to develop, but never forget that beginner mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, you know this already, but I love the fact that these things have, just come to like the commodity level of, we all have access to do a thing, right? And that access has let us build the big red button and the radon thing. And these are useful utilities for us to do our job. Let us do, I should say, run our lives, right? I don't want to say do our jobs, but really facilitate life. And it's here, like it's in front of you, and it's not necessarily taboo, but it's cool. Like I really do enjoy that space and this convergence between software and hardware and the cloud, and it's really all coming together at a level that I don't know that most even realize.
Absolutely.
Until you're really in it, right? And you really see, like, this little chip is talking to big servers doing, things over and over again.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
The kids that I've encountered, we've been given the badges. We had a bunch that we gave out to folks at the workshop, and then others to adults that have come by, but we've actually given a few badges out to some of the kids because they've just been enamored and just like taken aback by this idea of having this interactive thing that they can wear around their necks, the wearable, right? And the kids have been like visibly floored on, that's what this thing does, this is what I can do with it. And I think I've seen that in every sort of new electronics experience for kids. And
I mean, it's like opening the cabinet door underneath the sink. Like, if you never look to see where the water goes,
right? Yeah,
you never know there was a pipe that collected it and threw it through the wall.
Right. Absolutely, yeah. And I think that it just sort of goes to show that there are a lot of things, everyday things that we take for granted. But if we dig in and ask the right questions and ask why and how and look behind the scenes and have that childlike mind, because kids always ask those questions.
Right. Yeah.
But if we continue to have that even as adults. That amazing things can happen. I think that's what gets us in this place of becoming makers, and how you and I, as software people by trade and background, had that moment of, okay, I've got to do physical. It's why you work on cars. It's why that's always been the physical side of labor has always been part of your DNA, and I think it is for a lot of us as well. We love to. When we first start writing code, we love this idea of writing code that then does something on the screen. And then I think we all reach this moment where we're like, well, what can I do beyond the screen?
Right, yeah.
What goes outside of this
And I'd like
box?
to do more.
Yeah. And not just in the cloud, but I mean beyond this device. Like, how can I control a robot? How can I, what do I get out of 3D printing? Like, how do I make my creations come to life?
Yeah. It's funny, you just mentioned 3D printing, and I'm thinking about the makerspace and CNC machines and printers and cutters and all of that. I mean, it's that convergence is just crazy. I mean, you can print stuff to use it. You can find shops that will print it for you and cut it for you.
Yeah.
This stuff didn't exist. I mean, it existed at a level that was unattainable for common people.
Absolutely.
But even in my little country town, two towns over, there's a 3D printer guy who's got the $10,000 machines, and you tell them whatever you want to have, and you send them your CAD files, and
this stuff is amazing.
He poops out a part, and we're not talking about, it's not like I'm paying to spend $10,000 for the part. Like,
you're not paying a tooling
raw
cost.
There's
no
plus
tooling
some time on the machine.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And I live in 75 miles outside of Chicago. You almost anticipate you'd have to go that 75 miles, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, it's nuts to me, and I've seen some of that. I actually started in Austin a little hardware meetup group about 3 or 4 months ago called the Austin Hardware Happy Hour. Gives us a chance. I mean, go somewhere and have drinks and talk about hardware.
People spill water on electronics.
Yeah, exactly. People bring blinky lights and projects and things like that. But there's a few guys that come pretty regularly that are old school hardware guys. Like they are, because Austin, there were silicon companies in Austin.
Yeah.
This is there are a couple of fabs there at one point in time. And so there are guys that worked for 30 plus years in this field, and we got to talking last time, and there was some of the curmudgeon-y commiserating about, like, you guys have these great electronic design tools today, and you got DigiKey, and I was having to pull parts books down and flip through this stuff from Panasonic, or flip through this stuff from Philips, and figure all this. And they were part curmudgeon-y, but part also expressing appreciation for how far we have come.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And machining is the same way. I mean, where manufacturing has gone in the last 10 or 15 years, home printing, but even having this as a service, the cloud service, I mean, you're not going to buy an industrial mill, probably. You may like one, but what you can do is use CAD software now to basically lay out exactly what needs to happen, and the machine does the work. It's the same sort of thing with doing PCB design. 10 to 15 years ago, if I had designed this badge, part of the process would have involved me sending it to the board house and probably spending about 6 days doing phone calls back and forth while the board house verified my files.
Right.
And then I would actually print, and this is what I was told, is that 20 years ago you would basically print out transparency screens where you were laying out changes between the schematic and changes between the layouts to make sure that everything was right. Whereas now, I upload a file to PCBWay, 16 hours ahead of me in China, somebody looks at it within 12 hours, we get an email back and forth, I pay via PayPal, and I can have boards in hand in 4 or 5 days if I want to.
Yeah, and that's what we did for that conference.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
300
crazy.
boards later.
Yeah.
Right?
And what was crazy about that is that what we end up having, that conference badge, that soldering badge that we have now, like we ended up iterating on 3 or 4 times. And those iterations only took place in the last few months.
Right.
And so we were able to do that because of that speed, change it, lay it, it's not quite right. Trees are a little bit too big, and we can kind of, because there's something to be said for you don't really know.
Holding it.
Well, until you see it, until you have it to realize that, okay, it's not quite right yet.
It doesn't quite work. Yeah, you can measure all you want and lay it out on.
And that speed of iteration is unparalleled. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And like you said, China, right? Now we're talking this global market of things. And
absolutely.
And even that's just kind of mind-blowing. And
it really is. To think about just the amount of stuff that we are air freight, sea freight. I mean, there's just so much stuff that's just going around the country, all over. But those tools, there's another example where, sort of going back to our roots, the reason that all of that is possible is the internet. So it's all electronic, it's all manufacturing, but the backbone of all of that is a telecommunications network that is the most amazing thing ever created. Yeah. So I'll go back to that. Like everybody in the rest of the manufacturing world, the electronics world, they owe it to us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, without a web page, you're useless. Web developers.
They should be thanking us.
Web developers still rule the world.
That's exactly right. Absolutely.
Actually, it's the modem people.
It is. Exactly. You're probably right.
It's the modem people.
It's the modem people. Yeah.
All right. Let's end it there, but the last time you were on, I didn't get to ask this question, or I wasn't asking it at the time, and obviously it's a theme for me. So what does community mean to you?
You're not going to catch me saying and putting it on.
You just
a
said
clip
it,
video.
so I can already edit it.
No, you can't edit it.
Yes, I can.
You're right. Community.
But I didn't do that. Well, I did add some for Keith, but.
Oh, that was the best. That was absolutely fantastic. Hopefully he appreciated that.
I actually let him see it beforehand.
Okay, and he was fine with it? That's okay. All right. You probably would have rolled it anyway.
He was the only one that saw it.
Okay, all right, cool. So community to me means a group of not necessarily, I was about to say like-minded people, but I don't think they have to be. It is a group of people that share a set of passions and share a set of goals. They may not all believe the same things. They definitely don't all look the same.
Yeah.
They don't all feel the same things. They don't all have the same priorities. But they do have a common set of things that ties them together. In some cases, it can be location. Communities of old, it can be sort of where you are. In some cases, it can be just where you choose to hang your hat, where you work, your favorite watering hole,
yep.
where you spend your time, online, in real life, or otherwise. But there's something, a common bond that ties you together. Whether it's the ecosystem of products you choose to pay your time and money to and spend it and spend your time on, or if it's just your beliefs, your values, whatever it may be. And I think real community is the most vibrant when differences and diversity are embraced. I know that sounds a little pithy, but I think really now, more than any time I can remember in my lifetime, we do need a continual reminder that our differences are what make us better one day to the next.
Yep.
And our ability to, yes, resolve sometimes differences, but more importantly, embrace differences, realize other points of view, develop empathy, develop understanding, that is really what makes community strong. And to me, I think without that, you don't have a community. You have a group of people that think they may be community, but until you get to that point of truly embracing and realizing that your differences are what make you powerful, you're not quite there yet. You haven't built that community.
Yeah, I would agree. I was talking this morning with a gentleman, and we were talking about just kind of size and numbers of that conference and where things had started and the why and whatnot. And you know, I often tell people, like, we're just getting started now, and it's been 7 years.
Yeah.
And the reality is until it gets. Everybody wants to measure numbers, right? You talk to a sponsor, well, how many people are going to be?
Yeah.
1,100.
Yeah.
Okay, right? So there's some, like, you know, they think this because it's 1,100. Well, is it successful? It's at 2,000. And I start to think about, well, are we big enough to where we can actually provide said set of diverse experiences?
Yeah,
and I would say no. Like, I don't think the 1,100 people that are here this week, or the 1,700 if you included kids, I don't think that's enough people to be diverse enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much that happens in our world. If half of the audience is web developers and the other half is working on the cloud, well, you really only have two things.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And if you're all from Milwaukee or Madison, then you have this cultural bias as you're from Milwaukee or Madison, right?
Right.
And so there is a bit of power in that scale of numbers, and you know, maybe 1,200 is the answer. I don't know. It would depend upon said thing, but getting that level of diversity is takes a long time.
Absolutely. Right? And I think it's probably an objective you never truly achieve. You feel like you've always got a little bit more to go, but
I mean, it's a moving target, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people change, towns change, cultures change,
absolutely.
Technology changes.
Absolutely. But I think the most powerful experiences of our lives are the ones where we allow ourselves to be around communities that we don't quite feel comfortable in right away, or that are different from us in some way, and to feel that. And it could completely be geographic, you know? I know we need to wrap up, but I mean, I moved in my younger days after Sarah and I had been early newlywed. We moved from Texas to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Texas is a relatively conservative place. We grew up in a relatively conservative town, and we went off to Colorado Springs, which is still a relatively conservative town, but largely in a more moderate to liberal state. And I'm not going to get into talking politics, but I do think that it was useful for us to move out of where we grew up, where we had lived most of our lives, and then to go to a place that was different enough, that there were different enough people. Sarah was going to a graduate program in psychology, so we were around a lot of folks that were different views, different ideas, different beliefs of what we grew up with. And we walked away from those 5 years that we lived in Colorado with a great appreciation for a bunch of different perspectives that would have been harder for us to get if we had just stayed put, you know?
Yeah. Well, that was a big reason of how we got to even be sitting here today. It was traveling all over the country and talking to folks and seeing that we didn't have a thing that somebody else had. And, Austin is different than the East Coast and the West Coast.
Absolutely.
The Bay is different than, the coast itself versus the Pacific Northwest. That's a hard thing to grapple on.
But I think the fact that you get so many, I have in mind, people like Sharon and Corey and her family and the Dalbys and, well, not even just Texas, but folks that come back year after year as speakers or attendees that from far afield because we see in this conference something that is unique because of the community that's being created. And I think you see those folks come back time and again, not because they're from the Midwest, but because they see in that conference something they want to be a part of.
Yeah, I and I've said it before, I think it's getting it to be 365 days out of the year.
Absolutely.
That's the hard.
I
didn't say the hard part, but that's the goal. And it's not, if you could do this every day, you could have this network every day in this conversation, then that's hugely powerful in your day-to-day, happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, sir.
Thanks, man.
As always.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
It was a nice chat.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to get back to recording our other podcast of
OTA.
That's right.
We got to get, we do have to get back to that.
We're going to get a logo. I'm going to need a little sleep after this one.
We'll get there. I think we got to re-record episode 1.
I think,
sorry.
Just start all over.
Just start all over. Yeah.
I think, for those who are watching, I would say, I'm just curious, where in their journey is electronics, the commodity side of electronics. I mean, are you a web developer? Do you tinker? Do you have plans to do more? Are you, is it something that you think about or just kind of impulsively buy? I mean, hell, I bought that one thing off of Kickstarter because the dude just had a sweet video and I laughed and I was like, here's my $15 because that was entertainment. But I'd say leave a comment and let us know kind of where you're at in your journey and the types of things that help.
Yeah, that would be cool to see. I'd love to see what people are doing.
All right. Well, then with that, we're out. I think it's time to get some lunch.
Yes, I'm hungry. Let's go.
See you next time.